Welcome back to Hometown TCG, ladies and gentlemen. My name is John.
And I'm Josh.
And today we are continuing our series with the Blitz starter decks. We're looking at upgrading Prism. But before we do, we're on a race to something.
Oh
right?
my goodness, we're on a race to 500 subs. Guys, if you've seen this Blitz deck upgrade series, if you've liked any of our content in the past, even if you're new here, make sure you've clicked that sub button below. We're racing to 500 subs. Help us bring you guys some more awesome content. We love our community. We appreciate all you guys. Let's get into Prism. So let's go over the rules.
So yeah, if you're just first tuning in on this series, we are going $25 or less to upgrade your starter decks.
That's not a lot of money.
No, it's not. And for Prism specifically, how much was it?
So for this deck specifically, on the day of filming, these deck upgrades would cost you $24.95.
We're pretty close, but man, I think we got a good build. Rule number 2 is that we have to keep the mentor in the deck.
Even if we don't want to.
Even if we don't want to.
The mentors are cool. People get the Blitz decks. They want to play with them. We got to keep the mentor.
And rule number 3 is we are using Majestics. So we got to get some Majestics for your builds.
So each deck gets at least one Majestic is rule number 3 because it feels cool to draw that powerful card, be able to play it. It's a good feeling. We want our players to have that good feeling.
Yeah, so getting into Prism herself, I think this deck is going to be great. We kind of did some things to really focus it. So what we're looking at is either doing a turn where you do your weapon and then a herald, or what can be more impactful is you're trying to buff a herald.
Exactly, and you're buffing those heralds with cards like Phantasmify, cards with pummels that are adds, and we are adding a piece of equipment to replace the leggings, right?
Yeah, so to replace Spellfray leggings, we're going to add Snapdragon Scalers there. They are only there for your Wartune Herald.
Yes, it feels like a weird ad, but it is only there for Wartune Herald, so you can go Wartune Herald into second Herald.
3 cards for 14 damage.
That's pretty good.
All right, so we're looking at that. Let's get into the reds themselves. The first one we're adding.
You championed so hard for this card. You dragged me onto the train. What is the first red we're adding to this deck?
It is going to be Fate Foreseen.
Why Fate Foreseen?
I'll say this. I think Sink Below is better, but Sink Below was also like
$1.88.
I think it was like 20 times as expensive as Fate Foreseen is.
It was expensive, but this deck's often going to defend with at least 2 cards.
Yeah, so a lot of times if you're just doing the Herald, you want to defend with 2 cards. There are turns, we just showed 3 cards for 14 damage, so you want to defend, we want to get a defense reaction in the deck. So I think Fate Foreseen is going to be your best option there.
Okay, and then we talked about, kind of your big turns can be buffing these Heralds as well. So we included 1 more red Phantasmify as well as 2 red pummels.
Exactly, those are your huge ones, and Pummel is just amazing.
Pummel is amazing. A Herald that is not destroyed, which gets pummeled, feels incredible. If it's red, you're looking at 11 damage, and your opponent discards a card. It's just dumb.
It's super impactful.
Dumb.
Now, when we're talking about dumb, I think this one might even take the crown. Okay, so this is your Majestic. It is Phantasmaclasm.
Yes, you are adding Phantasmaclasm to this deck. If the goal of this deck
2 copies.
2 copies of Phantasmaclasm we're able to slot in under the budget, and if your goal is to overwhelm your opponent, Phantasmaclasm does just that. It's huge. If you haven't checked it out, check the card out. If you're playing Prism, buy 2 copies. You're going to want them. We're also adding 2 copies of Brutal Assault. Now, why is this?
Yeah, so it may not look like it does much with the deck. The reason you have it is because it helps you in the mirror matchups. You need those 6-power non-phantasm attacks. And not only that, this one blocks for 3, so it can kind of be useful in all situations. And if you have to, it is a 6 damage attack that can be pummeled.
It is a 6 damage attack that can be pummeled, and if you find yourself in the Levia matchup or a matchup with a lot of 6s, it's something you can pummel to push over the top until you can destroy your gloves to get something through. Yeah. So I think it's absolutely necessary. We're also adding a couple of Heralds, 2 copies of Herald of Triumph, 2 copies of Herald of Ravages. Herald of Triumph is just, it's necessary,
That's
right?
another one. It's not in the deck, but it helps you beat that Levia matchup, man, and a lot of other things. People slot in these 6 attacks, but that one makes them have to use a 7.
Exactly. So Herald of Triumph is a 6 of. It's necessary. We also had 2 copies of Herald of Ravages. As far as yellow goes, we do add a copy of Yellow Pummel. And then as we talked about, the 2 Herald of Triumphs, pretty much for the same reason as the reds.
Exactly.
Exact same reason.
Just extras.
And then for blue, spoiler alert, Phantasmify ×2, 2 Pummels, and 2 Herald of Triumph. All for the same reason. This deck is very singular focused.
Yeah, it can do this like giant pummel turn so frequently.
Absolutely.
It's crazy the amount of damage it can do.
Exactly. And Pummel, again, getting those cards out of your opponent's hand. If they decide they want to take it and they don't want to defend, they want to try to overwhelm you, we want to take those resources because, like we said, we only want to block with 2 cards. We're going to take away their resources no matter what. For all this cool stuff to come in and kind of focus the deck on what it wants to do, some of the filler in the original Blitz deck had to come out, right? And some of the stuff we took out was...
Yeah, Seek Enlightenment ×2 just doesn't really do too much for you.
And we also took out 2 copies of Illuminate, and while the card is fine, it doesn't really fit what we want to do.
Yeah, you're it's good on a 1-card hand, but a lot of times you're blocking with 2 cards anyway, maybe 3 cards, so you're fine as is.
Yes. We also took out Rising Solar Tide Yellow, 2 of them, 2 Yellow Enigma Chimera, which was a weird cut, but we feel like your other Heralds can just get the job
Heralds
done.
are better.
And we also took out your Merciful Retribution and your Ode to Wrath, because without many sources of Go Again and Luminaris, they don't feel as impactful, right?
Yeah, so I don't know. I just don't think they're that great.
And then to give the one that gives you Go Again to drop that, paying for it's almost you can't defend it next turn, and even if you do defend it next turn, you can't you can't take advantage of the Go Again anyway.
So the auras, they can kind of help you out in the matchups you have struggle with, which would be your Brute or your Guardian. But we did do some things in here to kind of solidify those matchups anyway. The 6 Herald of Triumphs help with it. The Brutal Assault along with the Pummels and the Phantasmifies to buff those up. You're a lot better in those matchups anyway, to where we don't think you need those.
Absolutely, I agree. And then we also took out the 2 Spears of Surreality blue, right? The Herald of Ravages blue, the Enigma Chimera blue, and the Illuminate blue. We took out all of them.
Yeah, so we think we just have better blues than that.
I think so too. I think there's more impactful blues you can play that kind of fit what you're trying to do. The Enigma Chimera is being a weird cut, but we think with the addition of Phantasmify, your other Heralds just offer a bigger benefit.
Yeah, you're gonna get an attack anyway on your turn, so you're not worried about having to attack with your blues as much.
Exactly. So with this deck, we want to overwhelm the opponent. We want to play these really big attacks. We think this deck could go to a tournament right now, and you could do fairly well.
I think so. I think you could win. I think you win, no doubt.
And actually, we have seen a player at an event of ours take a Prism deck that they built with just kind of stuff they had around, and they kind of followed this strategy, and they took the entire event down. 12-person event.
Random stuff. I think this deck is better than his deck.
And he played it really well, but he
beat us.
He beat us, and he took the whole event down. So, guys, if you get the chance, if you have bought this Prism deck off the shelf, spend the $25, upgrade this deck, and for our final spoiler alert, our rule was we had to leave the Mentor. Feel free to slot it out.
Oh yeah,
Mentor out for second yellow pummel, not a bad idea. If you want to play the Mentor, you can. It's fun. Slot it out if you don't.
Yeah, I think you would need more Majestics in your deck to really even get value out of it.
I think so too. So that's been our Prism upgrade, guys. Again, if you haven't subbed, click the sub button. We've only got 1 more of these to go. We have upgraded 3 of the 4 decks off the shelf for under $25. We've made them tournament viable. We have 1 deck left to go, and I think we've got a good amount of our community waiting on this one.
Yeah, so be sure to click subscribe to join us next time when we are unleashing Levia upon you.
We are unleashing Levia for sure.
So until then, my name is John.
And I'm Josh.
And we'll see you next time.
Goodbye.